HEC side, welcome Mr. Xavier Reman Posset.
Dear Chairwoman, Timekeeper, members of the House, members of the government, members of the opposition, good evening. You obviously need to learn some manners, young man. We have heard a lot of nonsense tonight. I think that we have a fine bevy of imposters here. And I think that, my job as the last speaker is to rebut what little things they said. Now, let's start with Fatty. Fatty, is that you? Well, Fatty, I have to sum up your arguments to rebut whatever I heard, but I think I've never heard a more vacuous and completely irrational speech in my life. It has left me entirely speechless, so sorry about that, folks. Max, who's obviously thank you, who's obviously obsessed with physical perfection and who obviously has just come off from the football pitch because he hasn't put a tie on. How can you possibly? He hasn't rung yet. Too early. Sit down, too early. How can you be so dishonest as to say that physical perfection is metaphysical? It's contradictory. There's nothing to say. You haven't convinced anyone 1 second. How can you say that transient glory is immortality? Who remembers a champion who lived in the 1950s? No one.
Since in the 1950s religion was rock and roll, isn't it natural that we have forgotten sportsmen back then?
Sorry, excuse me. Did I say for 1 second that rock and roll was a religion? I don't think so. So your argument is invalid. Now, anyway, I think that everything they're saying is so preposterous, I don't think they believe a word of what they're saying. But I'll come to that later. Now, Reda has twisted sport into a strange sort of concept, which is called sportianity. Yeah. I admit his speech was very funny, but just playing around with words and being unpleasant and rude to the opposition isn't going to help you. Your and saying that sport is an important part of our lives does not prove 1 second that it is religion. Get serious and learn manners. Charlotte, apart from talking about butts and foreplay, which is all very well but only really proves you're undersexed, which isn't that surprising, given your government, it doesn't prove for 1 second that sport is a religion. Sorry. Edouard, last but not least, condoms, Jean-Paul II, Kama Sutra. You obviously have no idea what you're talking about, do you? You should know, after what Munir said, that one counter-argument is enough to demolish a theory. He gave some. You should have listened. Enough to demolish a theory you haven't even proved so far.
For information?
Yes.
Then can you give a counter-example and give us a criterion?
Environment is a perfect counter-example.
A criterion of why sport isn't a religion.
I'm coming to that. I'm about to say that. Now, on the other hand, dear House, we have come to you tonight with truth in our hearts from far away under the snow and the rain. Jasper has proved to you that Zidane is in no way a god. Pauline has been truthful and honest, unlike the government, and has tried to understand what mystical experience resides in curling, which is just earthly, amusing, and a fantastic hobby, but in no way a religion. Raphael has offered us a complete panoply of what religion is. And the association between religion and sport is that it has been lasting for thousands of years. Useless governments have been trying to prove this for a long time. Yes?
If you don't believe that sport is the new religion, do you believe that the religion is the
Could the government stop trying to avoid the debate? The debate is quite simple. Is sport the new religion? That's all. You haven't proved it. That's it. Now, we will not lie to you, dear House. We will not pretend sport is a religion. Lend your ears to what we have to say, you in particular. In the words of Blaise Pascal, I have discovered that all human evils come from one thing: man's being unable to sit still in a room. Indeed, if we are agitated and hitting each other with golf clubs and tennis rackets, we can hardly say we are thinking about religion. People play and watch sport. Why do they do this? They do this to forget their boring lives. They do this to forget their miserable condition. They do this to forget about God and religion. This is why, ladies and gentlemen, sport is not a religion, but is opposed to religion. In fact, sport is the greatest religion, the greatest challenge religion. The greatest challenge religion has ever had. And that is why they're trying to prove this. Instead of bringing complex and metaphysical answers to the meaning of your existence, sport just makes you forget about things. We've all heard a lot of nonsense tonight, and I'd like to make things quite clear. When Armstrong was pedaling frantically away, do you think he had time to ask himself about metaphysical questions? Not until he lost a testicle. Do you think that when you're watching television and sipping beer, you are living a metaphysical experience? I do not think so. And so does the government, actually. And I contend tonight, ladies and gentlemen, that the government does not believe a word of what they are saying. Not only is the government lying in a pathetic attempt to prove that sport is a religion, the government is trying to manipulate you. Can't you see? Can't you hear? Don't you realize that what the government is trying to do is to encourage you to watch television, to wave flags around and to run around in circles, because the government intends to turn you away from the real issues of society: unemployment, housing, and education. Sport is the new... Okay, I'm completed. Sorry. The government is trying to make sport your new opium. Beware. No one can possibly contend that sport is a religion. Come on. You'll have to do better than that. Don't be fooled. Sport is just a game. Reject this pathetic notion, please.